Bluey has become a true phenomenon among children's cartoons in recent years. And you might not know this, but the little blue pup has already appeared in several other successful animated shows. South Park. Anyone who knows South Park knows very well that it is a cartoon completely different from Bluey, since it is aimed at an adult audience and features many heavy jokes that no child should see or hear. So it was quite shocking when the most famous dog from Australia appeared in an episode of this show. In this episode, the characters were being accused of creating artificial intelligence-generated videos to put several people in humiliating situations. The boys had to face multiple accusations, and one of those accusations came directly from Bluey, who was a victim of one of these fake videos. This is a very current and important topic, but Bluey's appearance here is completely unexpected and caused some controversy. Some fans of the children's show were offended by it and believe that a character as innocent as Bluey should not appear in something like South Park, while others liked the reference and see it as a sign that the Australian cartoon is taking over the world. If that impressed you, then you'd better get ready, because we're going to talk about all 9 appearances and references to Bluey in other cartoons and series.
That's right, another Cinewave is coming for you to enjoy.
Phineas and Ferb. Phineas and Ferb got a brand new season not long ago in 2025, and the series decided to come back in style because one of the first things it did was include a Bluey Easter egg. And this isn't one of those references that anyone would catch, but rather the kind that only people who actually watch Bluey will understand. In one scene, Candace says biscuits. In case you didn't get it, this is a term that is very commonly used by the characters in Bluey. They usually say it when something goes wrong, as if they were saying something like ugh or that sucks. Bandit often says this to avoid using any bad words in front of his daughters, and the term ended up becoming so popular that it is now used by many families in real life. It seems that now even characters from other animated shows are starting to use this word as a way to express their frustrations in a healthy way. The Simpsons. The Simpsons is another cartoon that loves making sharp satire about all kinds of things, and it was only a matter of time before this happened with Bluey, especially after The Simpsons became a Disney property, which is also responsible for the international distribution of Bluey. In a special episode released in 2024, an absurd number of Disney characters appeared as special cameos, and guess who was right in the middle of all of them? Bluey and her little sister Bingo. It's funny how the two of them are completely static and extremely small when compared to human characters, since they are both dogs. They didn't get much spotlight because they were surrounded by many other famous characters, such as Elsa from Frozen, Judy from Zootopia, the Madrigal family from Encanto, the superheroes from The Incredibles, and the Star Wars cast. But most Bluey fans managed to spot them right away and absolutely loved this special appearance. It would be really cool if Bluey showed up again in The Simpsons, but with more prominence, especially because unlike South Park, not all episodes of The Simpsons have such heavy jokes, so another appearance by the character could truly be something respectful and fun. If you would also love to see Bluey showing up again in The Simpsons and in other animated shows, comment down below #Bluey.
Oh.
My Little Pony. My Little Pony is a cartoon that fits much better with Bluey, since both are very kid-focused, even though they also have a large adult fan base. Because of that, it makes perfect sense for Bluey to be referenced here. However, her appearance didn't happen directly in the animated My Little Pony series, but rather in an official comic book that takes place within the Ponies universe. In this comic, a blue pony appears with a look that has an undeniable resemblance to Bluey. It's basically like a pony version of the Australian pup. The pony dad who appears next to her in turn looks identical to Bandit. Because of that, it's pretty much confirmed that the Healer family exists in the My Little Pony universe, just in the form of ponies instead of dogs. It's incredible to see how much Bluey has impacted the world, to the point of showing up in a children's franchise that was already very successful long before her own series was even created. That even raises the question, could the My Little Pony characters also exist in Bluey's world, but as different dog breeds instead of magical beings? Or is My Little Pony simply an animated TV show within the world of Bluey, just like it is in our own world? Futurama. Futurama is a cartoon very similar to The Simpsons in the sense that it loves referencing and poking fun at other animated shows. And just like The Simpsons, this series also made a reference to the most popular kids cartoon of the moment, but in a much funnier way, since this Easter egg happens when a list of movies appears on a screen. One of those movies is called Alien vs. Predator vs. Bluey. Since Futurama takes place in the distant future, the show is basically suggesting that, at some point, the Alien and Predator franchise franchises, which have already crossed over with each other, will eventually join forces with the Bluey franchise to make a movie where the little blue pup throws down with the alien and the predator, which is completely absurd and hilarious. But let's be honest, it would be pretty awesome to see a full movie about Bluey going all out in a brutal brawl against these two classic horror movie villains. Even more so if she did it while still being just a little kid who loves to play. Or could this Futurama universe movie take place when Bluey is already an adult? Well, fans love imagining what she'll be like when she grows up, but very few would ever imagine her becoming a hardcore alien hunter. The Simpsons, again. That appearance of Bluey in The Simpsons' backyard wasn't the only time she was referenced in The Simpsons. In another special episode, which also featured several celebrity cameos, Bluey's name showed up on a guest list. In fact, the list was packed with other famous character names: Ant-Man, Pinocchio, Thanos, Lightning McQueen, and even Luca. The Simpsons have really been taking advantage of the fact that they're now part of Disney to include every possible Easter egg and cameo in some of their episodes, which is pretty awesome. It's a shame that these crossovers aren't canon, at least not within the Bluey universe, unless she someday mentions in her own series the day she traveled to another universe with her sister to meet a family of yellow people, superheroes, and many other Disney characters. If something like that ever gets mentioned in a future episode, we're sure Bluey fans would absolutely lose their minds and spend months talking about it, theorizing what other crazy adventures Bluey gets into when we're not watching.
Subscribing is quick, easy, and keeps you updated with everything happening here. Let's go!
DuckTales. Do you know DuckTales, the animated series about Uncle Scrooge's nephews? This is another children's animation about kids who are animals, which makes it yet another show that basically had a moral duty to reference Bluey at some point. In a Christmas episode, the characters travel through time, and one of them, Dewey, ends up meeting a younger version of Donald Duck. When he comes into contact with him, Dewey decides not to say his real name and pretends to be Donald Duck's cousin, calling himself, guess what? Bluey. Yes, that's the fake name Dewey uses to hide his true identity, and the name has two meanings. One of them is because he's wearing a blue shirt, and of course, the second meaning is the fact that it's a clear reference to the character Bluey, who, coincidentally, is called that because she's completely blue. At another moment, Uncle Scrooge himself calls Dewey Bluey because he can't remember what his name is. This becomes even funnier when we remember that the full name of Bandit and Chili's daughter is Bluey Christine Healer, but her middle name, Christine, is usually forgotten by all the fans and probably even by her own parents, poor thing.
Chilla. When it comes to talking about references to Bluey, you simply can't ignore Chilla, since this entire show is basically a walking reference to the Australian series. In fact, most people go even further and believe that this animation is a blatant copy. That's because Chilla has a visual style that is extremely similar to Bluey. It's very easy to confuse the main character's house with the Healer residence, just as it's easy to confuse the entire series with Bluey itself. Everything else about the show is also very similar. Animal characters, a blue-colored protagonist with a father who is also blue, a mother and a sister who share the same colors, episodes focused on playtime and life lessons, understanding and playful parents, and so on. Because of that, every episode of Chilla ends up being a massive reference to Bluey, intentional or not, to the point where most people call this cartoon the American Bluey, since it comes from the United States, while the Little Blue Dogs show is of Australian origin. So what do you think? Do you believe Chilla can be considered a tribute, or are you on the side that sees it as a copy of Bluey? Or do you think all these similarities are just coincidences, and that Chilla has absolutely nothing to do with the Australian children's animation? Inside Out 2. Not even Inside Out 2 managed to escape referencing Bluey. The first movie in the franchise was released before Bluey even had its first episodes, but the sequel came out right when the little blue pup was becoming one of the most famous characters in modern children's animation. Because of that, one of the brand new characters in Inside Out 2 ended up becoming inspired by her to some extent. We're talking about Bluefy, the character from Riley's favorite childhood TV show. He has traits from many kids show characters, and his name is very similar to that of three very famous animated dogs: Goofy, Bluey, and Blue from Blue's Clues. It's very clear that Bluefy was mainly inspired by those three. It was inevitable to include a bit of Bluey in him, since she became so popular and turned into the very definition of animation for young children nowadays. However, Bluefy's main inspiration is Blue from Blue's Clues, since his show is very similar, focusing on talking directly to the kids watching and helping them find clues that exist within the episode. What's interesting is that Blue's Clues also served as inspiration
inspiration for Bluey herself, since she is very similar to the star of that show, even though the two programs follow different styles. Before you go, take a look at the two videos on the screen. Thanks for watching, and see you next time!